What is up, YouTube? McIntyre here. Today I wanted to bring you guys a video talking about the Western Clash for HGC. This is going to feature 6 teams from EU, 3 from EU, 3 from America, and will be the top teams competing against each other to decide which is the best in the Western region. Today I wanted to bring you guys this video to kind of give you my opinion on most of the teams so you can have a better understanding of what you should be looking at. I'm going to try my best not to talk on and just kind of mumble a lot of things off of the top of my head. I've written some things down, so hopefully I stay on, point. But for the most part, this is just basic information about these teams. I don't really want to give too much info going too in-depth with them, because this could potentially help teams out if I did talk too much about these teams, but I'm going to give you some general knowledge about each team. Things that they do well, in my opinion, and then I'm going to talk about their breakout players and who, for each team, I believe will be the person who decides whether they win or lose. So, yeah, we're just going to go right into it. Again, if you have any feedback on this video, let me know in the comments, but really this video is just for people who might not have a good understanding of all the teams. Maybe you're a new viewer even, and this will give you a basic idea of what you should be looking at when this tournament happens. So the very first team that we're going to be talking about today is going to be Fnatic. Fnatic is considered still the best European team. A lot of this comes from the fact that they had a very good showing at BlizzCon. They ended up beating MVP Black, and this was a huge success for Western teams in general, as we had never really beaten the Koreans before. Maybe Team Liquid did back, I think they even beat MVP Black a long time ago. But this was the first time that we had beaten them since they, had their dominance of Heroes of the Storm. So really awesome for Fnatic. But going into this tournament, I think this team has the highest overlook for a team, considered the strongest of EU, possibly because of this. So we just want to talk about a few things with Fnatic in general. One thing that we all know is that Quacknix is a really strong player. And potentially, if Quacknix gets a hold of Falstad, other teams might have a really hard time. This is something that we've seen time and time again with Fnatic. Their consistency with global picks, Falstad, Dahaka. These are things that we see these guys take a lot. They were even taking ETC with Stage Dive. So, this is something that we want to look out for and see if they have a priority over that. Even though EU right now is kind of looking at like a double tank meta where globals are getting banned with the, changes to variant and the priority, it'll be interesting to see if they still, try to force these global picks. Things that I really think that Fnatic does well is their team synergy. They really just click as a 5-man unit, and I think this has always been their strongest point, and the last time I talked about this team was the point that I brought up. They're not only friends in game but out of game, which is an amazing thing, especially when you're on stage playing with these guys. When you care about the people that you're sitting beside of, you work even harder to win for them. You're not playing for yourself, you're playing for your teammates, and I think this really shows for Fnatic. Even when you watch them, win against MVP Black, they celebrate as a team, and they all put in their efforts and their hard work to get that win for them, not for, each player. So I really like that mindset and mentality with this team, and I honestly think that they could do really big things. Their breakout player is going to be Wubby, and this is a pretty obvious one I want to say, but yeah, I think for me it's going to be whether Wubby gets his breakout heroes or not. So if he's not getting the heroes that he's really comfortable on and he can really shine on, an example would be like Zeratul. He might, and the team might have a worse time. So we'll see if the other teams can choke him out of these heroes in draft, and if they do choose to, then what else opens up for Fnatic. So with that in mind, it's a really good thing to use for your own advantage. If the other team's targeting Wubby, then get things that other people they're not targeting, right? For me, Fnatic is the strongest team play in EU. next we are going to talk about Dignitas. Dignitas has always been a dominant team in Europe, consistently a top team with a strong roster. They haven't changed much. They change maybe a few players every once in a while, but they've still had a really strong core four, and they've shown that as they've always had success at LANs and in Europe. So this team for me always has had a priority on mages. Even when range like Vala were really strong, we still saw this team taking mages for Mine, as it's a great way for him to show off his mechanics. And this is something they've just done for as long as I can remember. Even when I played against Team Dignitas in Korea, they took Jaina for Mine on Infernal Shrines. Like, this was something that's been happening for a while now. So it won't be anything new here. And with the, changes to the meta, really, mages have a really strong place. Jaina, Li Ming, even Chromie, we could potentially see from this team. Something else that they started to do, and Europe did too, was priority on Hammer. So we'll see if they end up getting Hammer comps. There's a lot of different ways to draft him, but it looked like this team was really forcing the Hammer comps. So we'll see if they continue to force Hammer comps or Mage comps. It's kind of hard when you want to ban out mages, you give up Hammer comp, and then if you want to ban out the Hammer comp, then you give up a Mage comp. So we'll see if they can use that to help them win drafts. For me personally, though, this team, there's going to be a lot of pressure on Xaylia. Will he be able to fill in that melee spot? We've even seen games where Snitch has been on melee, so Xaylia could play like Tracer, for example. And for me, that's kind of weird. I feel like Snitch has a really good ranged role on the team, so switching him to melee for this player to play ranged seems weird. I guess the flexibility might be there, but this is questionable behavior and hopefully something that they try to avoid at this tournament when you're playing against the top teams in each of the Western regions. But with that said, the breakout player is going to be Xaylia. I mean, if you can show off his mechanics, I know mechanically he's a great player. He's a really strong player and one of the best in EU. If you can show off his mechanic and play good games with Dig, I think, with that strong core four, they should be an incredibly strong team and one that, you want to not play against until later in the rounds. So I honestly think this team should show up if Xaylia shows up. So Dignitas is also the best, in my opinion, has the best strategy in EU. So they really, think about the complexities of the game and how they can really get the fullest out of their strategies. The last team that we are going to be talking about today for Europe is Team Misfits, and this is the, I would say, strongest team going into this tournament, in my opinion. Misfits came so short of BlizzCon with a bad loss. It happens, it was like a best of 5 series, and a lot of people just forgot about the team because they didn't make BlizzCon. Meanwhile, they just were always a top team in the EU, so now HGC comes back, and here they are with a dominant record. They dominated EU. They've had a really good showing. So I'm really glad that they're back in the scene and back on top. But Misfits is one team for me, personally, that I really like their style. They've always prioritized wombos and composition synergy. So they're never just picking heroes because they're strong, right? You're never going to just see Misfits take, Tychus, because he's strong. They'll take Tychus, but they'll make sure that they have a stun tank. They don't just take him and then, we don't have a stun tank, so how's Tychus going to minigun? Instead, they might take something like Nazeebo or something, So I really like their draft and their ability to draft composition synergy. Their picks always make sense. And for me, this reminds me a lot of the Koreans' drafting strategies, and their consistent drafts where no matter how weird their draft gets, it always makes sense. Sometimes with NA, I mean, this is my team personally. Sometimes we draft things and at first it makes sense, but then it just falls apart and then doesn't make sense anymore. And consistency in draft is so important in this game, as it's a big part of it. So I really like this about Misfits, and I think this is one of their strongest suits that we'll see. Will they get the wombos? Will they get the composition synergy? The other thing I really like about this team is their flexibility between Nurok and Darkmok. Both of them kind of allow each other to have comfort picks and always play comfort picks no matter what's drafted. So, we might see Darkmok on melee, and then the next game we might see him on range. And we might see Nurok on melee, and then the next game we'll see him on Nazeebo. So, these two guys bouncing about is always fun because the other team has a harder time adjusting to play styles. Whereas Darkmog might be aggressive on Rag, Nurok might play passive and wait for his, pounce. So just adjusting to play styles within a tournament can be game winning. An example would be with our team back in the day, Team Naventic, when me and Fan were on the team, I played Illidan one game, and then the next game, Fan played Illidan. And the playstyle of our Illidans is much different. So, changing up playstyle sometimes can, hurt the other enemy team because they are expecting one thing and then they get another. The breakout player for Team Misfits for this tournament is going to be Splendor for me. I honestly think Splendor is the top EU support, even with Smexy and Bakery both being really strong supports. I honestly think Splendor is just a little above both of these players. I think his consistency as a support allows his team to look a lot stronger than they are, right? A strong support equals a strong team most of the time. It allows like Darkmok and Nurok as melees especially to really play up, and even Hasuobs, he can trust Splendor as Diablo to hit the palm if he goes in, or hit the ancestral. These are things that when you trust your support to always have your back when you are going to overextend to try to make a play. It really allows a lot of space for you as a playmaker. So I really like Splendor's play, and I've always thought he's been really consistent with his team, and always seems to land the palm and the root. So, but for Misfits, their title for me would be best draft EU, because I just think their draft is always consistent, and it's very hard to lock down and control as an opposing team. We are now going to focus on NA's top 3 HGC teams. The first team being Tempo Storm. Tempo Storm is just known currently as the best team in NA. They've had the best record for the past few tournaments. They have the best record in HGC. They've really just shown that they are the top team in NA, and they're the team to beat. So going into this tournament, they're our top team to win, hopefully for us. And I honestly think they have a really good chance to show that they are a top NA team and potentially a top Western team when they compete against these European teams. One thing for Tempo Storm for me personally is that they also have a very consistent draft, just like Misfits, where they don't normally lose draft, and most of the time if they lose draft they have a harder time in game, but even then they don't always lose. But for the most part they don't really lose drafts, and not losing draft usually equals like a much easier game. The Tempo Storm's always been on top of the draft, and they also have their pocket strats when they need wins. So when they really need to pick up a quick win, they have drafts that they like to go that maybe counter a common draft that we see a lot, and just get pretty much easy wins because of it. It's a kind of an outsmart mechanic almost from their team. They let the other team have comfort that you might see all the time, right? And then we've got a strategy for that. We've got a plan for that. So I really like that about Tempo, using out of game knowledge to put themselves even further ahead in game. The other thing about Tempo is they have kind of the same flexibility of Misfits with Psalm and Cattle. Both of these players are really mechanically talented, and being able to switch and give each of them comfort when they need to play comfort is always a plus. And this also allows just for easier drafting, because they can draft something early and then, oh, okay, cool, well, Psalm can play this now. Maybe he was going to play this pick early, but now he can play this, later on. In Cattle, you're going to pick that now, so same thing that kind of going on for Misfits goes on for them, which I really like about this team, and you'll see this a lot of the time. Maybe Cattle's playing melee one game, Psalm's on range. Next game, maybe Psalm's on melee, Cattle's on range. The breakout player for this team is definitely going to be Fury, and this has just been consistent thing for this team. If Fury is on fire, I don't think that they can lose. If he's just playing really well, yeah, this team's hard to beat. But if you can kind of slow Fury down, maybe put him on his back foot, that's when you see this team start to fall apart. There's like, a few ways you can do this, but if you can find a weakness in his armor, then yeah, the team has a much harder time, as I think Fury holds the team together. Also shout out to, June. I also think, I talked about Splinter before, but June does the same thing for this team. It's a kind of honorable mention. This team trusts him as a support and allows them to make, more overzealous plays, right? Play a little more forward than they normally would because June's always going to be there for them. So honestly, this team has really good synergy. It always seems like they hit their buttons together. And honestly, yeah, the probably best team in North America at the moment. For me, their title would be the strongest rotations in NA. I think that they just rotate and play the maps so well. It's just always been something that Tempo's done consistently. The next NA team that we're going to be talking about is Team 8. Team 8 for me and most is the wild card of NA. No one really knows too much about the team yet, or even the players. Like, a lot of these European players won't have played against most of the players on this team. I think the only one being Glau. Like, that's it. So they have no, reading or expectation of the players. And I think for that reason, Team 8 has a solid chance to do well in this tournament. Their strategy for the most part is team fight and comfort. So you're going to see them pick heroes that they always pick, and they're just going to play it better than you. And that's just been Team 8's strategy since day one. Just pick what they like playing and then play it better than you. They also have really good drafts that they like picking, like certain drafts that you'll see over and over with them. And they just typically, execute them so well as a team. And I think a lot of it has to do with their confidence. They're just a confident, young gun team. They don't have anything to lose, and that a lot of the times drives people to play even better than they normally would. There's no pressure, right? Their ability to collapse as a team very quickly just shows that they have lots of trust in each other. They don't hesitate. If someone makes a call, people are there. If someone needs help, people are there. And you can see that in their game and their synergy in team fights even. This is, to me, the one team in NA that is still kind of fun. And a lot of this has to do with, I think, again, no sponsorship, no responsibility. It's just, you just go out there and play. You're not trying to get first. You're just playing to have fun, and potentially you can get first, right? As long as you show up, you're confident, and you play well as a team. So this, for me, is the team that I think will do well this tournament. It'll be interesting to see, though, if other teams just shut down this kind of wild playstyle. And for me, the breakout player for this team is going to be Prismaticism. And the reason for this is most of his past LAN experiences have been pretty lackluster. I don't know if it's just the pressure or what it is, but Priz seems to have pretty bad LAN showings. So for me, if Priz can step up and show that being at LAN doesn't affect his play, then I think this team will do really well. And honestly, the actual team atmosphere might be what's driving him to play better, right? He doesn't feel pressured by his teammates. There's no egos, there's no expectations. They're just playing. So maybe this is something that's helped him a lot to relieve a lot of this tension and pressure. But my title for this team is the best team fight NA. And the very last team that we're going to be talking about today is GFE. GFE, long time running team for NA, always done very well. A good hearted team. For me, like, GFE's always been about their pocket drafts, though. They tend to have their own strategy and kind of make their own sort of thing work. They don't really typically play meta. You don't really see them play meta picks. They just play stuff that they like playing. And a lot of this has to do with their strong synergy together as teammates. They really play off of each other a lot of the time, and their picks, although it doesn't make sense at first, makes sense when they start playing it. Just seeing them work together to really show off why they picked this has always been something cool with GFE. Almost like a comfort draft. But when they are playing well together, they really play well together, and we saw this in the Tempo Storm GFE series. My thing about them that I'm afraid of, I guess, is that their ever-changing switch between Crone and Equinox sometimes worries me. In some games it doesn't. It feels like if Equinox is on a hero that he likes and Crone's on a hero he likes, then they'll do well. But if they ever get into a drafting scenario where Equinox or Crone, either of them, is on a hero that they do not like, then that's when the problems are going to arise for this team in this tournament. So for me, the thing to be looking out for is, do each of these players get heroes that they like to play? And if they do, then GFE has a really good chance, right? And if they don't, then that is what can make or break this team. Also, you know, if they get comps they know and love, right? And if they do, then they can win this tournament. If they don't, they might have a problem. So we'll see how this team shows up. You know, this is another really good team for NA. Honestly, all these teams have a good chance, in my opinion. The breakout player for GFE is going to be Equinox. And again, I just talked about this, but a lot of people would have maybe guessed I would say Fan here. But honestly, for me, Fan should play well, right? And so Equinox, if he does step up and he does lead this team to play their own type of game, then GFE really is a force to be reckoned with in this tournament. So it'll be interesting to see if Equinox can do that. And if he does, then, you know, again, they're going to have a great tournament. Yeah, and I would say GFE's got the best swag in NA. Like, they're gonna either have their swag or they're not. But that's their title for me. So that's gonna be it for all of the 6 teams at the HGC Western Clash. Really quickly, I'll just talk kind of my expectations. Honestly, GFE Fanatic, that's gonna be a close series. Just all of honestly, Dig Teammate, it's gonna be a close series. I think all of the series are gonna be close. I personally think Misfits will win the tournament. I think they're just a little above everyone else. If I had to say one team was going to win. But I do think NA will beat or take games off of EU. I don't think EU is just going to dominate NA like a lot of people are expecting. I think NA has a lot more talent than people assume. And, you know, these guys are there to show that they can compete. So when you're in that scenario where you have, you know, the pressure's on, a lot of the times people step up. People show, you know, that they're the top in the game. And, you know, I really hope that NA has the ability to do that at this tournament. And, you know, EU, again, I think they've just always shown that they're the play, and NA just hasn't. So with these top 3 teams for NA, in the top 3 teams for EU, I honestly think we're going to have a really enjoyable tournament, and I'm excited to watch. So I hope you guys are excited as well. I hope this information helped you out. If it did, please make sure to throw a like and subscribe to my YouTube channel. You can always check me out on Twitch and Twitter. Those are going to both be located below in the description, as well as my tier list and all sorts of stuff that I'm working on outside of, you know, game. But, yeah, that's going to be it for today, guys. Thank you all so much. Again, hope you enjoyed, and I will see you guys next time. Cheers.